Gentlemen, can y'all take that outside?
He's stuck in.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to begin tonight for the regularly scheduled meeting of the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority. Today is Wednesday, April 24th, and the time is 6 p.m. So we've called the meeting to order. We're going to ask Ms. Monique if she can call roll, please.
President Navarrete,
Present.
Vice President Thomas, Secretary Flores,
Here.
Director Duffy,
Here.
Director Basie, Director Seiler.
Here.
Okay, looks like we have a quorum. We're able to do business. Moving on to item number 3, citizen comments. I hear crickets. Moving on to item number 4, approval of minutes. Item 4A, consider approval of the BCRUA meeting minutes for March 27th, 2019.
Make a motion to approve the
We have
minutes.
a motion by Councilmember Duffy. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Flores. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 5, resolutions. 5A, consider a resolution approving an amendment to the BCRUA procurement policy. Ms. Bondi.
Madam President, Board, this is an item that we talked about at our last board meeting. We discussed 2 proposed revisions to the board's procurement policy. And if you look in your agenda packet, you'll see a red line of the policy. It's a 1-page, pretty succinct policy. So the operating committee and I have been spending several months looking at our financial processes, looking for efficiencies and improving our procedures. The number of transactions that we're seeing at the BCRUA has increased dramatically, with 4 projects ongoing and 3 loans and 3 cities plus BCRUA. It's getting more difficult to make the 30-day turnaround in paying our bills. So the first revision, shown in the red line, is related to the limits of our that our operations superintendent has on purchases and contracts and change orders. Right now, it's $1,000, and we're proposing to increase that to $10,000. This would allow him to pay our Pedernales Electric Co-op bills that are in that range, order chemicals, replace small equipment. And Jason Bryan has been our superintendent for 8 years. He's trustworthy, and this would allow him to essentially run the business up to a limit of $10,000. And he'd still need to follow the procurement policy and get 3 bids for anything over $3,000. And I will audit that and make sure that that's being complied with. The second revision is, right now, board procurement policy requires operating committee approval for any general manager purchases between $3,000 and $50,000, even if they're already in the approved budget. And so this has probably the biggest impact of these proposed changes in our turnaround time for our pay schedule. We are proposing to eliminate the need for operating committee approval for purchases that I would make in that range. Now, the operating committee would continue to monitor the budget at our routine meetings, and I would be reporting to them if I was exceeding any budget. So that's the summary, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I think anything we can do to help systemize and operate smoother will definitely help us. We don't want to become a slow pay. You know, that reputation gets out there. So, board, does anyone have questions of Ms. Bondi on the item? No? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion by Secretary Flores. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Director Duffy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving to item 5B. Consider resolution authorizing the president to execute supplemental agreement number 1 for BCRUA Phase 2 raw water delivery system with Walker Partners Freeze and Nichols joint venture.
This item relates to the design of the Phase 2 raw water intake project. And BCRUA is going to need a permit from the Corps of Engineers for this project. And actually had obtained a permit, a 404 permit from the Corps in 2012. But in the coordination with the permitting agencies that the Water Development Board required as a condition of our loan approval, the Corps said that they will no longer honor that permit that we already had, and we were going to need to reapply. So we have, we discussed this at our board meeting in January when I asked you to let me hire an attorney who was an expert in the Corps of Engineers permitting. So now we need to do some additional analysis for the Corps application. So the purpose of this supplemental amendment number 1 is to prepare the report, the hydrologic report that the Corps is going to require. We will be running many different scenarios to help us develop the strategies that we are going to use for this permitting. There'll be a lot of coordination with LCRA, a lot of technical experts involved, document reviews, coordinating with other entities that have been getting these permits and meetings. And then we'll present the information to the Corps once we have the result of this report. And then at that time, the Corps will tell us what permit that they think we need to have, which may begin a phase 2 of this discussion. So the total compensation for supplemental amendment number 1 will not exceed $75,496. Staff and the operating committee have reviewed the attached amendment and exhibits, and we recommend approval. And we are here to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any idea on the timeline for this? Or anticipate like a year?
We are looking at less than a year time, but the analysis is going to be pretty comprehensive. Now, we do have about 2 years till we need to get the permit. So, Aaron, you want to add some more detail to that?
Yeah, the work under Supplemental Amendment 1, Karen had mentioned it's probably the first of 2 phases. Once we submit that to the Corps, they're likely to come back and ask us to do what they call a Tier 2 review. We don't know that with certainty at this point, and we don't know what they would include in that review, which is why we haven't included it in the supplemental today, because we can't define that scope of work at this point. The work in this supplemental is going to take probably about in the order of 3 months to complete before we can get back with the Corps and talk with them and present the findings and figure out the next step. Right now we have a lot of time. Schedule's not a major concern in dealing with the Corps. There's actually some reasons we'd want to delay it. Once we get a Corps permit, we've got a 5-year window on that permit, and the construction of this project, if we got a permit this year, we'd be in the middle of construction when that permit would expire. So we don't want to move it too quickly because I don't want to use up some of that 5-year duration in our design phase. But our goal and what I've got in our schedule is we'd really like to be finished and have that permit from the Corps close to this time next year. So we've got ample time, but we kind of want to push it at a methodical and not too fast pace.
So very critical as far as the timing, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get it. Anyone have any questions?
So, I mean, we are doing this because the Corps has decided that that's what we need to do, it's what we have to do, right?
That's right.
Sounds
And
like
so-
we're at their mercy.
I mean, they've changed the rules mid-game, but we've done everything we're supposed to do up to this point.
That's right.
And there's no guarantee that they won't change the rules again.
That's right. And in our meetings with them, they indicate looking over all the options they have, they're sort of deciding on one particular approach, and we may or may not agree with that, and that's what we're trying to get ready for.
But this is not unique to just our projects. This is any Corps projects are being reviewed this way?
The Corps, for any diversions, any water being taken out of reservoirs or creeks. The Trinity River Authority had this problem when they were trying to divert water from the river. Brazos River Authority had this issue when they were trying to divert from Lake Stillhouse Hollow. The Corps is just saying that because you're taking water out of a water body, you need to look at what the impacts are on the water body of that, and that gets very complicated.
Struggle, but I'm sure y'all will make it happen.
There's a woman who's not planning to be here.
Go team. I'll cheer from the crowd. Okay, do we have a motion and a second already? Nope.
No. Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Secretary Flores.
And
a
a second.
Second from Ms. Duffy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Tomotion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 5C. Consider a resolution authorizing the president to execute an agreement regarding Phase 2 of the BCRUA's Regional Water Treatment and Transmission System Temporary Power Project with Pedernales Electric.
This item also relates to the Phase 2 raw water delivery system, and it is an agreement with Pedernales Electric Cooperative to extend power to, at least on a temporary basis, or for our project. There are several phases of the power improvements that are going to be needed, and this addresses the power that will be supplied to the contractor once we get one on board to be able to build the project. So we have been negotiating with Pedernales Electric Co-op on this for literally years. And we finally reached out to PEC and said, look, you have now become the critical path to this project's success. We need to get this going. It's an 18-month construction that is expected because it's a pretty long route to get the power down there. And so they actually did show up in force with the major players that were needed to get this agreement negotiated. So between Pedernales Electric Co-op and many of their senior managers and staff, and then it was a full court press from all of our staff. Everyone in the room here pretty much has been at those meetings. All the attorneys from all three cities, all the engineering staff from all three cities, and our consultants. So we've had some major meetings in the last 6 months really to try to bring this to fruition. So I'd like to, we finally completed negotiations with PEC, I would say, as of yesterday. And that being that they have agreed that they didn't need any more changes to the document that you have in front of you. So let me run through the highlights of the agreement. So the first part is related to easements. This is a very long stretch of power line that PEC has easements for, but if some of those easements we find are not sufficient for the temporary power project, then BCRUA and its member cities will be responsible for the acquisition of the easements and right-of-way necessary for the project. And that could include condemnation. Of course, we have Lori Bible and her team to help ensure that doesn't happen, but if it does happen, we may have some condemnation. Now, PEC is going to be responsible for 50% of the costs related to surveying, researching, and updating those easements for the project, up to $50,000. And then easements that we acquire then would be conveyed to PEC. Secondly, BCRUA will contract with M&S Engineering to complete the final design of the project there at the request of PEC. And then thirdly, the PEC will construct all the improvements, while BCRUA will obtain all the permits required for the construction. And the way the payments and costs will work is PEC will provide estimated costs required for each phase of the power project, and then BCRUA will pay PEC these costs before PEC would begin construction. And then, as I mentioned, the schedule for design and construction is expected to take about 18 months. Now, all the costs of these improvements were budgeted in the Phase 2 raw water delivery system funding. And then staff and the operating committee have reviewed the agreement, and we recommend approval. And probably about anyone in this room could answer questions about this, since we've all done this together as a team. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
Board, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Bondi or staff? May the record show also that Mr. Basie has attended. Sorry, the traffic was terrible. Glad you're here. Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Secretary Flores and a second by Director Duffy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. I love these meetings. Okay, Director, closing comments regarding items of community interest. We have a ton of rain today. I thought we were all going to float away today, so it's springtime. I know we're going to need it this summer, so just thankful for that. Anyone else?
I will wish President Navarrete farewell, as this is her last meeting. And I have a feeling I'm going to be doing this a lot over the next week or two, but you know, you'll definitely be missed, and you did a great job over the last year, and you know how much your friendship means to me, so appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Soller. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's going to be hard to leave this group. Y'all are also very important. I think at the end of the day, you know, water is our finest resource, and I hope people give this board the credit it's due for the joint efforts of 3 cities to actually get together at one table and make something happen. I don't think any of us, nor our taxpayers, would have wanted us to do that on our own, so I'm very thankful for the foresight. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'd like to say as well, you know, you've served 4 years here, right, on the board, and the last year as president, and done a great job. And beyond that, just your 12 years of service to your community in Leander, and time spent in your life, time taken away from your family for that is much appreciated. So on behalf of the operating committee, staffs of the cities, General Manager Bondi, and myself, we'd like to present you this plaque here, and it says, with our greatest appreciation, Andrea Navarrete, board member March 15 through April 2019, board president July 2018 through April 2019. Thank you for all your time and leadership throughout the years. We appreciate your dedication and commitment to the Brushy Creek Regional Utility Authority.
You're going to make me cry. Thank you. Very important to me. Can we get a group picture? I guess I need to adjourn the meeting first, right? This is beautiful. Thank you guys so very much. It really means the world to me. It's been an honor to serve with each and every one of you that are so important in your community, and staff, just top notch. I just love you guys. Okay. Any further comments? Okay, we are hereby adjourned.